Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT-06, and BT-06 offers us a lot of new and powerful tools to build some new and exciting decks with, and in today's deck I'm going to be covering the Black Royal Knights deck. So the Black Royal Knights deck is basically exactly as it sounds. It's a black deck that's using all three of their Royal Knights in combination to do some very powerful things with. And black is starting to get a lot of good generic tools to at least to try to compete with a lot of the other colors, now more than ever, especially with some of these new Royal Knights cards and some of the other cards in BT-06 to help support the color. So without further ado, onto the deck profile. Starting with the Digitamas, I'm going to be running up 4 copies of Pagumon. So Black finally gets another generic Digitama for us to be using that's not Kapurimon, and Pagumon is looking to be pretty good because it's acting as, I guess, a pseudo card draw engine for the deck on the Digitamas. So Pagumon here has a nice inheritable ability where it's an on-delete ability. We get to reveal the top card of our deck, add it to our hand if it's a black Digimon, otherwise it goes to the bottom, and that's looking to be pretty good considering Black has had a huge problem with card draw in the past, and now we have a Digitama to help us draw cards. And then the 5th Digitama could really be anything you want. I would recommend either using Kapurimon or Kapurimon because those two are just the best generic Digitamas that we have to be playing around with. They're both DP boosting in various different ways. I just am going to prefer using the starter deck Kapurimon just because we're going to be interacting with the blocker mechanic more than the reboot mechanic. So having our Digimon gain plus 1000 DP for interacting with blocker is looking to be really, really good. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 4 copies of ToyAgumon. So ToyAgumon is still one of the best inheritable abilities that we have just because he's giving the inheritable ability of Reboot, and that just allows us to unsuspend our Digimon during the opponent's unsuspend phase, which is really good because, again, we are going to be interacting with the blocker ability a lot, so we could use this to restand our blockers and aggress with our defensive cards, on top of which it just allows our Digimon not to be attacked into unless they have a card effect stating they can specifically attack into unsuspended Digimon. So it's looking to be a pretty decent card to be using for its inheritable. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Chuumon. So Chuumon is a really important card now more than ever just because he does have that memory blocking ability where during all turns your opponent can't gain memory except by tamer effects. A lot of colors got the ability to play around with and manipulate the memory in the form of memory boosts and even more tech and tools that they had before, on top of the ones that they already had existing. So Chuumon is looking to be more and more of an important card to stop those memory manipulating shenanigans. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Chikurimon. So Chikurimon is looking to be a pretty decent Digimon to be using because it's a security Digimon. Even though this Digimon won't be able to play itself for free when it's checked in our security, it does have the security ability of at the end of the battle de-digivolve 1, and that could be pretty annoying on the opponent because they could be swinging with their Mega and then hit a Chikurimon in security and it de-digivolves them, making their Digimon weaker, presenting us with opportunities to be able to respond to the opponent in powerful ways to delete their Digimon. So it's still just looking to be a pretty decent Digimon to be using, and at worst you just want to use this in the raising when it's in your hand, so that way you could just get off of it as quickly as you possibly can. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Sunarizamon. So this is the promo Sunarizamon, and this Sunarizamon is looking to be really, really good just because this card adds a lot of extra power and oomph to what the deck is trying to do. So it has the nice ability statically during your turn. All your black Digimon with 13,000 DP or more gain the piercing ability. So this is just a really good ability to statically have on your field for our higher levels, so that way when we're swinging with our high level Digimon, then they're going to be ensuring that they're going to be dealing damage because we have ways to easily make them 13,000, so that way they can gain the piercing ability. And on top of that, he even has a nice inheritable ability where during your turn, while this black Digimon has 13,000 or more DP, then this Digimon gains security attack +1. So whether he's statically sitting on the field or he's in your inheritable sources, this card is looking to be really, really powerful to be utilizing just because of all the extra pressure he could apply onto the opponent. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Shademon. So Shademon is another security Digimon, and what's more important is the fact that it's a security Digimon with the blocker ability. So this way, when it's checked in our security, he'll play himself for free, and then he'll be a blocker to stop the opponent from continuing to try to aggress onto our security because he came out of the security and he's a blocker. The only downside to the card is he can't attack, but that's not that big of a deal when most of the time we're just going to try Digivolving on top of him if we do want to attack with the Digimon, or we're going to just have him sit on the field and act as a really good blocker. It is slightly unfortunate that he only has 5,000 DP instead of 6,000 or 7,000 DP compared to some other blockers, but the fact that he can be played for free and we do have ways of protecting our blocker means that he's going to be more valuable than some of the other blockers. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Nanimon. So Nanimon is a flex spot of the deck. It could really be anything you feel like you want to be using, but I feel like what this card is doing is pretty decent just because he is a security Digimon. So when he's checked in the security, he plays himself for free, and then we could use him to Digivolve up into our higher stages that much easier and efficiently with, on top of the fact that he does just naturally have a really low play cost, allowing us to go into our higher stages, again, that much faster and that much more efficiently with. But if that's the whole point and goal of the card, you could really use any tempo efficient card that you feel like you want to be using in this card slot. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of DarkTyrannomon. So DarkTyrannomon is going to be another blocker of the deck, and what's making this a really good blocker is just he's also a tempo efficient blocker. So because we do have 2 different sets of blockers, and we could be playing around with more blockers if we really feel like it, we just have the ability to want to use this card just because he has an evo cost of 1 and the blocker ability. Next, on to the ultimates, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Gogmamon. So Gogmamon is looking to be very, very powerful still just because his main ability of Digiburst 1 to give one of your Digimon plus 2,000 DP until the end of the opponent's turn is looking to be really, really powerful still just because it helps set up our Sunarizamon so that way our higher levels could be at 13 to trigger both of his abilities off whether he's on the field or in the inheritable. And then on top of that, the ability does last until the end of the opponent's turn, so the DP boost will persist even through the opponent's turn, making it that much harder for them to respond to our slightly boosted Digimon. And then on top of that, what we're really trying to play the card for is his inheritable ability of during all turns, this Digimon gains plus 1,000 DP, so it's acting like a permanent DP boost, and that's looking to be pretty strong, making sure that our Digimon are as strong as they possibly can at all times. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of WaruMonzaemon. So WaruMonzaemon is just going to be another tempo efficiency card where we're just playing him because he has a low play cost, low evo cost, and we don't really care about his DP because we just want to get up into him and get up past him as fast as we possibly can. And the fact that he has some very efficient stats for being a level 5 makes him a very appealing Digimon to be using. And then the last ultimate of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Megadramon. So this is the Megadramon that's coming from the Black Starter deck, and this card is really important for the deck because it has the nice inheritable ability of giving the blocker ability. So this is really, really powerful because it could turn our big bodies into some very defensive bodies, and if we pair this up with ToyAgumon, then we can make them blocker reboot Digimon when they might not have it before. So that's just looking to be really, really powerful, on top of the fact that it could give our other Royal Knights blocker for the main Royal Knight we're going to be playing, which is going to be 3 copies of Craniamon. So onto the Megas, Craniamon is looking to be a really, really powerful card and kind of the center card that we have to play Royal Knights around because he's adding some protection to our other Digimon as long as they have the blocker ability, which we could give thanks to Megadramon. So what Craniamon is doing outside of the fact that he has this nice ability where during all turns your Digimon with blocker can't be deleted by the opponent's card effect is he natively has blocker himself, so he does affect himself, and that's looking to be pretty good overall just because there is a lot of removal in the game and we do want to try to stop or shut out the opponent from utilizing their cards as efficiently and effectively as we possibly can, and this affects more than just the other Megas that we could potentially give blocker to. It also affects all of our lower level Digimon with the blocker ability, ensuring that they're going to have a higher chance of survival through the opponent's removal abilities because he shuts all of that out. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Gankoomon. So Gankoomon is another really powerful level 6 Royal Knight Black Digimon to be working with because he has this nice when Digivolving ability where we get to delete all of the opponent's Digimon with the lowest play cost. So that's really powerful alone just because Black has had a hard time removing bodies before, and the fact that now we have a good when Digivolving to delete a body is really, really strong. Yes, unfortunately, it is on the lowest play cost, so if the opponent does have 2 Digimon, he will be getting rid of the weakest one, but if they're just sitting on 1 Digimon, then he's just straight up deleting that 1 Digimon, because that's the only target that they have. So that's looking to be really, really powerful of a removal ability. Even though it is on the weakest, it doesn't necessarily matter. Removal is removal is removal, and that's always good. On top of the fact that he also has this nice other ability where during your turn, while the opponent has an unsuspended Digimon in play, then this Digimon gains security attack +1, so that way he could punch the opponent even harder than he could before, just because now he could hit for 2, possibly more security, because this card also pairs very nicely up with Sunarizamon, just because we could give him a nice DP boost, and then he'll be at 13 or more, and then he could potentially gain piercing and an additional security attack plus. And that's looking to make this card really, really strong. And then as far as the last Royal Knight we're going to be playing around with, and the last level 6 of the deck, is going to be 2 copies of Alphamon. So Alphamon is looking to be a very powerful Digimon because he is our tempo and memory efficient Digimon that we want to play compared to the others. So him evoing for 3 does matter because we can cheaply and easily get up into him. And then on top of that, he has 3 really strong abilities. His first ability is a security ability. Unlike a lot of the other security Digimon, he's not going to be playing himself for free, but it does trigger during the end of the security battle, where he'll be added into our hand, so that's really good, ensuring we're always going to have him to play. And then on top of that, if a Digimon with Royal Knight or X antibody in its type is in play, could be our field, could be the opponent's field, it doesn't necessarily matter, as long as another one of those is in play, then up to 12 of the opponent's Digimon can't attack for the turn. And that's really powerful because we could easily set this up ourselves by playing our other Royal Knights or even our other Alphamon, which is really good because shutting down the opponent's ability to attack is really, really powerful because it turns off all forms of aggression, allowing us to buy some time to aggress onto them and close out the game that way. And then on top of that, he also has a nice when attacking ability where we could pay up to 5 memory, and if we do, this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP for the turn for each memory paid. This is really powerful because this, again, pairs up with Sunarizamon, where we could boost himself all the way up to 13+, so that way he could gain the piercing and or security attack plus, which is making him look really, really powerful. And at the end of the battle, we get to gain 2 memory back, so at worst, you just always want to throw 2 memory in him, make him a 13k, have him swing, and then at the end of the battle, we'll gain the 2 memory back like we never even lost it. Or we could just not even boost him at all, take that risk, and then gain the 2 memory to enhance and extend some of our plays that way. So he's just looking to be a very powerful card to be playing around with, and kind of the sub-reason why we want to be playing around with a lot of Royal Knights. And then as far as the last Mega of the deck and the only level 7 of the deck, I'm choosing to run 2 copies of Omnimon Zwart Defeat, but this is another flex spot, and it could really be any level 7 you feel like you want to be utilizing. I just think for what this deck is trying to do, Omnimon Zwart Defeat is looking to be a very powerful card because, again, he is another security Digimon, and that's kind of like the sub-theme of the deck, is just utilizing the security in very powerful and effective ways. So the fact that we have a level 7 that could come out of our security for free is looking to be very, very strong. And then on top of that, he also has this nice when Digivolving ability, if we do use him to Digivolve up, to just allow us to delete one of our opponent's tamers, so that way we could try to get rid of their tamers and try to put them off of their game. And on top of all that, he also has a nice on-delete ability to delete one of the opponent's Digimon, so if we do Digivolve all the way up into Omnimon Zwart Defeat, or he just comes out of our security, he's going to be a very powerful threat that the opponent's going to have to deal with, and if they do deal with him, then he has the ability to delete one of the opponent's Digimon, and we can make this card even more annoying by pairing him up with the blocker and reboot abilities. So that's making this card look very, very powerful to be using, on top of the fact that compared to a lot of the other level 7s that we could be playing around with, he also evos for 3, meaning he's a little bit more tempo efficient for a slight lack of DP, and unfortunately because he's white, he does not combo with Sunarizamon, but that's okay, he doesn't need to because he's just so good on his own. Next, onto the option cards, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Iron Fisted Onslaught. So Iron Fisted Onslaught is basically the Gaia Force of the deck. You could kind of split this card up between this and Ultimate Flare if you really wanted to, or run Ultimate Flare instead of this if you really wanted to. There's no real wrong answer as long as this card is just the dedicated hard removal option card of the deck, just because what this card is doing is it allows us to delete all of the opponent's Digimon with the highest play cost. So this obviously kind of combos with Gankoomon, where Gankoomon will naturally delete the lowest, where his option will naturally delete the highest. So this will always just pick off the strongest Digimon on their field, and that's looking to be very, very good because most of the time when you're using big hard removal, you always want it to be on their strongest Digimon. So that's looking to be pretty good, and then on top of that, it also has the nice security ability of activating its main, making it just a really good card to be utilizing, especially since we are playing with the sub-theme of the security abilities. And then the last option of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Black Memory Boost. So Black Memory Boost is a really good card because it does help the overall consistency of the deck. So what this card is doing is it has the main ability to look at the top 4 cards of our deck, put 1 black Digimon among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom in any order, and then this card goes into the battle area, so that way you could use its other main ability of Delay 2 to gain 2 memory back at a later turn. So this is looking to be really powerful because we could use this to not only help the overall consistency of our deck by adding cards into our hand and finding and digging cards we want and need at any given time, but gaining the 2 memory will allow us to enhance and extend some of our plays, making more powerful turns possible than they were able to before, especially since Black didn't have the best ways of gaining memory and drawing cards. This card fills both of those roles. On top of the fact that it has the security ability of being able to play itself into the battle area, so at worst, when it's checked in the security, you'll be able to gain the 2 memory later when you want. And then the last card of the deck is going to be the only tamer of the deck, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Izzy, but I'm choosing to run 3 copies of Izzy just because, again, we want to have our deck be as consistent as we possibly can, and Izzy not only being our dedicated memory fixing tamer, so if our memory was ever 3 or less, then he'll always just hard set it to 3, which makes a lot of our plays possible, but his playability helps with the overall consistency of our deck, where we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, and then if all of them were black, we get to gain a memory and place them back on the top in any order. So that's looking to be really, really good because we get to pick and choose out of the top 3 off of his ability what we want to try to draw into, and that's looking to be really good because we could use that to set up a Black Memory Boost, or we could use that information to gauge how we should be playing for the next couple of turns, which is really, really valuable information. Yes, the opponent kind of does know what's going to be coming, but it doesn't necessarily matter just because they have to be focused on what they're doing, and just because they know something doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. And then on top of that, the gaining 1 memory also is super relevant, making him a slightly more efficient tamer than some of the other tamers when all black cards are checked, making Izzy a really good tamer to be using. But again, you could use a whole bunch of other black tamers if you really wanted to, just because they're all really good and they all help and synergize the deck in some way, shape, or form. And then, as I mentioned before, there's just a ton of other things that you could do with the deck depending on what sub-theme that you want to take the deck's direction into. So there's just a whole bunch of really powerful cards you could consider using. So you could consider using ToyAgumon from BT-06 just because he's adding some extra DP for your Digimon having blocker during all turns. So he's making your blockers even stronger than they normally would be, which is really, really good. On top of the fact that you have this starter deck ToyAgumon to also interact with blockers subtly, where he has this ability during the end of the opponent's turn. If the opponent didn't attack, then you get to draw a card, also acting as a pseudo card draw engine. Then you have a whole bunch of tempo efficiency cards you could consider running if you just want to go for raw tempo to try to get up into your megas as quickly as you possibly can. So you have Hagurumon, you have Commandramon, you have Tankmon, you have Numamon, all really good cards to consider playing that are all very tempo efficient. Then you also have some various other blockers in the level 4 slot that you could be running. Mechanorimon is really good because of his ability to restand himself and really block the opponents off if their Digimon aren't stronger than him is looking to be very, very powerful. On top of the fact that you also have Gardramon and you have Sealstramon if you want as just some other really good generic blockers to be playing around with. Then we do have some really good inheritable abilities in our level 5 slots, so you also could be running Gigadramon and Megadramon just because they also count as black and red. They have really good inheritable abilities to DP boost during your turn and the opponent's turn respectively, depending on which one you're using. So Gigadramon DP boosts during the opponent's turn, which could help your blockers block even stronger Digimon, and then Megadramon DP boosts during your turn, making your Digimon really aggressive. But the idea is you actually could use these as a good transition point to play a red low end into a black high end, or vice versa, and really start to customize what Royal Knights you want to be using, because with these you could also consider using red Royal Knights, so they're just really, really good to be playing around with. And then you also could be playing Volcanomon, just because Volcanomon is another good way of trying to give your Digimon an extra security attack plus. And then you also could be running Magnadramon if you want to double down and focus on security abilities a little bit more, just because the Recovery 2 on playability makes this card a really easy card to be running, even though you can't really use its when attacking ability and its DP is rather weak. You don't care, just Recovering 2 is really, really valuable if you're playing around with the security abilities even more. And then as far as some alternate level 7s you could be running, Millenniumon, just because he has a nice removal ability and a good on-delete ability. Then you have Omnimon Alter S, because it's another Omnimon. It's when Digivolving ability acts as a good board nuke for the opponent's small Digimon, on top of having him de-Digivolve them all one, is looking to be really, really powerful. And his when attacking ability makes him unblockable, is looking to be pretty good too, to help close out games. And then the last level 7 to highlight is going to be Omnimon Zwart, just because Omnimon Zwart is a really powerful card and does have lots of really good synergy with the deck, depending on how you build the deck around him. So you could use Omnimon Zwart to just be able to use his when Digivolving ability to play 2 level 5s to help set up your level 6, or you could play a level 5 and a blocker, so that way you could go up into Craniamon and protect the blocker you just played. So it's looking to be really good there, on top of the fact that his when attacking ability is acting as some really good removal, so that way you could deal with the opponent's threats and add a level 6 back to your hand. So what I would have done with this card is I could have used this to recycle Gankoomon to get multiple uses off of his when Digivolving ability, so that's looking to be pretty good, all making Omnimon Zwart a really powerful card to be playing around with. On top of the fact that you do also just have some really powerful option cards that you could consider running. So you have Ultimate Flare to act as some more removal, you have Zubagon Punch, and you have Breath of the Gods to act as some really good utility type cards. Zubagon Punch is good for aggro just because it'll add Reboot Blocker and Security Tap Plus, so those are 3 very good things, on top of DP boosting our Digimon, so that way our Digimon can be really powerful. And then you could play Breath of the Gods to act as some more defense to try to help shut out other forms of removal on our Digimon. Then you have some other tamers that you could be playing around with. So you have Izzy and Joe to help draw us cards for when our black Digimon gets deleted, because, you know, that's eventually going to happen. And on top of which, it's not super hard to gain the 2 memory off of his ability, where if the opponent just has 2 or more Digimon in play, then you get to gain 2 memory, so it really limits how much Digimon your opponent wants. Otherwise, they're going to give you lots of additional memory. And then we even have Taikamiya to think about, just because Taikamiya is acting as another memory-fixing tamer, while DP boosting all of our black Digimon during the opponent's turn. And then we even have some white cards that we could consider using if we really felt like it. So we could use Mega Digimon Fusion, and we have a whole bunch of different white cards to help trigger Mega Digimon Fusion, but because we are playing some level 7s, we could use this card to some very powerful and devastating degrees, depending on what the build looks like and what level 7s you're using. On top of which, we do have Sistermons to be playing around with, just because they are interacting with Royal Knights. They are white, we're going to be hard playing them all the time to get their on-play abilities off. So Blanc lets us draw a card, and she's going to be acting as another blocker, and give blocker to all of our other Sistermons, which interacts with Craniamon, so that's looking to be pretty good there. On top of the fact that we have CL to just gain us a memory, so she's actually 3 and not 4, and she will make all of our Royal Knights stronger during all of the opponent's turns, so that's looking to be some really good and powerful interaction there. Then we do have some white tamers we could consider thinking about playing. So we do have Takumi, just because Takumi helps us draw cards, and he could also turn off some of the opponent's aggression and limit some of their aggression on their level 3s. And we even have Tai and Matt to just help boost our Omnimons if we are playing more into an Omnimon-based strategy. And he has another really easy way of being a good duo tamer, of giving us 2 memory really easily for the opponent having a level 6 or higher Digimon in play. So there is just a lot that you could do with the simple theme of just trying to utilize Royal Knights in black. So you could double down and focus on Craniamon just because he has nice interaction with blockers, and as a result you could run a lot of additional blockers to try to capitalize on his ability. So that's one big direction you could go with the deck. You could go into the direction of Alphamon and Security Digimon and utilizing security effects in some very powerful ways. So that's a potential direction you could take the deck. You could take the deck into more tempo style. You could take the deck into level 7 style. Like, there's just a lot that you could do, and black finally has the tools to be playing almost on par with all of the other colors. So black as a whole is looking to be really good, and Royal Knights is looking to be really good because of all of the new interactions we have with Royal Knights specifically. So I do think this is going to be a really fun deck, and there's a lot that you could do, all depending on what you want to be focusing on. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.